Hello everyone, it is Monday afternoon in Paris. You're listening to the Earful Tower podcast. My name's Oliver G. You're about to meet this week's guest, Rosie McCarthy from the Not Even French YouTube channel. But first, a bit of news. You're officially listening to the best podcast in Paris. Yep, sound the trumpets again, although still don't have the trumpet sound effects. According to the readers of Expatriates magazine here in Paris, the Earful Tower is the best Paris podcast. So there you go. Something to add to the byline, perhaps. A big shout out to Charlotte, who I just bumped into in the Hollybelly Cafe. She told me that she was listening to last week's episode as she walked in, and then we happened to bump into each other in the cafe. So that was a nice treat. Hello to you, Charlotte. She was on the show way back. Glad you're still a listener. Keep doing it. And hello to Taylor, her friend, who was also a listener. Anyway, today it's Rosie McCarthy, episode 101, a New Zealander. And not in the studio, you're going to hear in a second. I was in her apartment for this episode, and we talked all about culture shocks, the weird things that you notice after you've lived in Paris and France for a little while. She had a great long list of them. We sort of picked the best 5 or 6. And, we'll have a little chat. You're about to hear a little chat between me and Rosie, and then we get into the juicy culture shocks that you notice once you've been living in France for a while. So enjoy the episode. I'll tell you a little bit at the end about the live video walks I've been doing. Just today, Monday, I finished the last 2 with Ben from the Local France and Kasha from Street Art Tours. We did all 20 videos in 20 days, 1 for every arrondissement. Good fun. Anyway, more info about that at the end. Here comes Rosie McCarthy. Rosie McCarthy, hello.
Hi.
So a lot of things are different to a usual Earful Tower episode, namely that we're in your apartment.
We are in the 9th arrondissement.
I would never do it. I don't usually do the episodes in your apartment.
No, this is the first time I've
right.
had a strange man sitting in my apartment doing a podcast episode
True,
with me.
because it's not the first time I've been here.
No.
Because we just had a video on your channel.
Yes, we did.
So I've already introduced you. These guys know who you are. But maybe tell us a little bit about that video specifically. And the other videos you do, you're sort of tackling France via YouTube?
Yeah, exactly. So I've been in France for about 5 years, and about a year ago I kind of had this passion project to start my YouTube channel. At first I started doing videos all by myself and just talking about French culture shocks and my life in France, and now I like to bring guests on as well, kind of like you do with your podcasts.
They're very similar, except yours is video and I'm audio.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we didn't even need to comb our hair today. That's pretty good.
No, this is really nice. And so our video that we've done for your listeners is really all about your honeymoon season and the fact that there are big differences between Paris and life in France outside of Paris.
And that's certainly something we can talk about today. But but what we're going to get into mostly is culture shocks.
Yes.
Because you and I, if you add it all up, we've been in France for 9 years.
Yeah.
In Paris for 9 years.
Yeah.
Which as expats, Antipodean expats, Rosie's from New Zealand, if you didn't guess. I don't know. Do you think you have a strong accent?
I've been told that I don't have a strong accent. French people tell me that I'm easy to understand. So I don't know. So I guess it's a compliment.
I had Paul from Peloton, who
we
had coffee in Peloton once, right?
Yeah.
And he was on my show the other day. Yeah, right. And he's been here for 18 years.
Yeah.
And he says that people say he doesn't have an accent anymore. He's got an accent.
He's got an accent. He's still got an accent.
Yeah.
But what I love is that they're like, oh, you're so much easier to understand than Australians.
Do they say that to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a strong Australian accent is almost impossible to...
Yeah. Same for us, though, like a rural accent.
Can you imitate accents?
I'm really crap at accents.
That's good. Can you do a really strong...
I can imitate a Frenchman.
Okay, go on, let's hear it then.
Okay. So, yes, I propose to you that we go over in a meeting, and yes, voila, we are going to see together, and voila.
That's right on the money. That's right on the money. If you're wondering why Rosie can imitate a Frenchman so well, it could also be because you're married to one.
Yes, but if I said that he had a strong accent, he would kill me.
Okay.
So
if you're listening, we don't think you have a strong accent.
No, he's got a perfect English accent.
Okay, great.
No, but yeah, I'm married to a Frenchman, but also more so working with French colleagues all day.
Because you've gone like full into the French life here. Like a lot of expats or foreigners in general tend to hang around in foreigner circles.
Well, I mean, that's kind of why I wanted to start my channel, is because I feel like I've had such a wide array of experiences here. So I've had like the internship, I've had the master's degree, I've had the finding the first job, marrying the Frenchman. So I feel like, there's a lot of facets of French society that I've really gotten into. I've definitely not stuck in like, the circle, I guess, of
You've gone all
expats,
in 5 years. That's impressive. You've done all that.
Well, it kind of, it sounds impressive when I say it on a list, but it was it's 5 full years,
That's incredible. What was the master's?
So I did my master's in international human resource management, which I'm working in now. So I'm working in a big French company in HR.
Right.
So so that's, I didn't say it the right way round, but I came here as a master's student.
Right.
Had my internship at LVMH, so Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy Group. And then I started working for a French tech startup, and eventually I landed where I am now, which is at L'Oreal.
So your French must be, are we talking 10 out of 10 here?
Not really, to be honest.
But you need to know the scale. 10 out of 10 is 10 is perfect for a foreigner.
Okay.
It's not like a French person. That's not who we're comparing with here.
Well, I just did a French test actually, because you need to do one as part of the French nationality application, and I got C1, if that means anything. So it means that I'm fluent, and the highest possible level is C2, which is bilingual. So I'd say I'd give me a 7 or 8.
No. That's a 9. I'll give you a 9.
Give me
You
a
get an
9.
earful 9. So we're sitting in your apartment, which is very charming. Has squeaky wooden floors that are
parquet.
That are parquet and an original from who knows how long ago.
Yeah.
We're sitting drinking. What is it exactly that we're drinking here?
So we're drinking a tisane. So it's a non-caffeinated tea herbal brew from my husband's grandmother from Avignon. So she picks herbs and flowers from her garden, and then she dries them, and she creates these lovely little packets of different teas for us.
Right. And we're sitting here by the windows looking over the rooftops of the 9th arrondissement.
Yeah.
This might be the most French interview I've ever done. I'm sitting with a New Zealander.
This apartment's super cool, like smack bang in the 9th, South Pigalle, as Soapy, as the locals call it.
And it turns out we're neighbours as well.
Yeah, we are now. When did you move?
Last night.
Okay.
So I'm still getting used to it.
So feeling fresh.
So Soapy is south of Pigalle, and that means I live Nopi. Do people say that? North of Pigalle?
I don't think so, but you can definitely make that a thing.
Make that happen. But what we're here to talk about is, in fact, we're going to talk about culture shocks in a second, but I just remembered another thing to talk about while we're talking about Pigalle.
Yes.
Is you and I are about to do a walk show.
Yeah.
So everybody who's listening to this, hopefully you'll have already seen it on Facebook. Part of the 20 Days of Christmas challenge. 9th day of Christmas is the 9th arrondissement. You ever done a walk show before?
No, it'll be my first. And I'm wondering how it's going to work logistically, because we have very different heights.
Well, I've done 9 in the past, or 8 in the past 8 days, and everyone's either a lot shorter than me or taller than me, which is weird.
How?
Exactly, right? The last 2, Tom Clark and Boris, were way taller. So logistically it never works. We'll get you on the top of the curb and I'll walk on the road or something like that. But the idea is, and you hopefully will have seen this, but we're going to go to the basketball court, the colourful basketball court, and then down Rue de Mathieu. Yeah,
and I was thinking we can do a little detour on the way past the sex shops of Pigalle as well, to show the dirtier side of Pigalle, and then head down the classy Rue de Mathieu. It could be nice to show the contrast.
Great. If you're trying to imagine what we're talking about, go over on Facebook. It's right there. That first bit with the dirty Pigalle will be in the free section. And then if you're a Patreon supporter, you'll see the rest of the walk down what Elaine Chalino called the only street in Paris.
Exactly. He even wrote a book about it.
Yeah, she was episode 2 of the Earful Tower. Although I'm not sure if it is the only street in Paris. I know there's like 5,200.
I think you've got your next book title. The Other Street of Paris.
The other 5,109. Anyway, culture shock. So you've been here for 5 years.
Yes.
That's long enough to notice. You sort of infiltrated them, the French people, and noticed a few oddities.
Yeah, and sometimes I get the comments on my video like, oh, come on, you've been here for 5 years. Surely you don't notice things anymore. You know, you're just kind of clutching at straws now. And I'm like, no, literally every week I'm like, oh, that's strange. Or, oh, that's different. Oh, that's funny. So.
Do you find that people think that when you point out things like culture shocks or ways that French people are different, do you feel guilty of maybe being like a little negative towards French people? Or do you always preface it by how much you love them? And
Yeah, no, I do get a lot of compliments on this in that I take a very balanced approach. So even if I explain a negative, something that I think is a bit weird or a bit odd, I always try and explain where it's come from and why. So for example, the fact that French complain a lot, very pessimistic, always critiquing little things. It's kind of like this attitude of nothing's ever good enough. However, it's because of their education system, it's because they're absolutely groomed to think that way, and it's a sign of intelligence. So for them, if they can pick something apart, talk about the pros, the cons, and really, attack something and kind of pull it to pieces and say that doesn't work and that doesn't work because I think it really shows their critical thinking, and it's literally a sort of a currency of intelligence. So actually the more you're picking at something and the more you're able to step back and be like, it's nice, but is actually, quite high social value. So I kind of talk about that. I talk about the way it impacts my life negatively, being around complainers, let's say, but talking about why it may be like that. So
that's pretty interesting because it's kind of like in life, if something annoys you or someone's acting in a bad way, if you just take a step back and you think about why, you can often figure it out and it makes it better.
Yeah.
And it's kind of what you just did exactly with, because a lot of people say that French people complain a lot or that they're rude or you hear this a lot. You must get comments from the foreigners that watch your stuff.
Yeah.
But that's it. You kind of you just take a step back and figure, is that the HR person in you?
I'm trying to, I'm a bit of an empath. I like to be able to put myself in other people's shoes and in general, I think that's why I chose HR and I think it's why I enjoy doing these kinds of videos.
Yeah. Well, you also, when we were sort of brainstorming this idea, you came up with one could say a lengthy list of some culture shocks that you noticed. Do you find it, is this the kind of stuff that we're about to talk about? Is that comparing to New Zealand or comparing to...
Yeah, so I kind of...
Because at the point one, there's no kiwi birds anywhere. You can't...
Yeah, no. So I do, obviously, I haven't lived abroad anywhere else. I come from New Zealand, born and bred in New Zealand. Like, I don't really have any other reference point. However, I do notice in speaking with other expats that I share a lot with Brits and Americans. And so I kind of say, compared to what I call the Anglo cultures, Anglo-Saxon kind of cultures, I would say, kind of grouping New Zealand, Australia, Canada, US, UK all together. And of course, there's differences between us, but in general, I've kind of found these things to be shocking for all of us. So.
I'm interested as well as we get through this, is because I know there's listeners in other countries in Europe or elsewhere, if they also find these things to be interesting.
Yeah, that's true. Because on one of my videos, I talked about, I won't go into the details, but the relationship with French and money, and I found them to be very safe and quite frugal, and actually I had a lot of Europeans saying, no, that's a European thing. It's kind of this kind of scarcity mindset, maybe after having lived through the wars, for example, and it kind of comes from that, so...
Interesting. All right, let's pull up that list, and we've got some highlighted points, and I'm going to sort of quiz you on, because some of them I haven't noticed, but remember, like I said, you've infiltrated the French. I'm with a Swede. I can give you a good list on Swedish habits.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But like, for example, I don't know anything about this point about showering. You're laughing already. Tell me, I don't even get it.
I'm laughing because this one had one of the biggest reactions of any of my videos.
Really?
So it's about the way that the French shower, and I just can't imagine how they've taught a whole nation to shower in the same way, but they managed to do it in that they get in, they turn on the water to get themselves wet, and then they will soak themselves up. So they turn off the water and then they do everything. They put the shampoo in, they put the body wash in.
Right.
I guess you're going to ask me, how the hell do you know that?
That's my follow-up question. I'm just waiting to see how much you know first.
And so then, obviously I have it from living with a Frenchman, so I noticed it and I was like, oh, he's maybe a bit of a weirdo.
Yeah.
But then
alarm bells going off.
Yeah, exactly.
You're looking at your engagement ring. What am I doing?
He works in wind turbines, and I know he's really, saved the planet. And so I was like, it's for eco-friendly reasons.
Sure.
That's great. But then I noticed, like, if we were staying with his friends, or that, we live in a Parisian apartment, we've got our bathroom right beside our bedroom, so whether we like it or not, when we have friends stay, I can hear them showering. So I can hear that the water goes on, stops for 2 minutes, and then comes back on.
Really?
And I was like, why do you all shower like this? And there's, definitely this thing around waste in France, and they're very cautious about wasting things.
Recycling's big.
It is, and it's in all facets of life, from food to water, whatever. So it comes from that, actually. It's about them not wanting to waste water. Also had a few comments saying that water costs as well, and so there's also like the money thing as well. So saving money on that. But I thought it was interesting because I was like, but what about in winter, you know? Like you turn the hot water off and you're like shivering, I imagine, foaming up and like getting all clean and getting all the soap on you. And then you rinse it off and you're done. And so it made me realize how wasteful we are actually in New Zealand, because there's nothing, for us, there's nothing like a nice long hot shower that, you know, that lasts for ages.
I've got so many questions. I don't even know where to begin. Firstly, what did your husband say when you first confronted him about his weird shower habits?
Well, he was like, sorry for saving the planet.
Fair enough. Yeah. The other thing is, in Australia, there's often water shortages, but I don't remember, even as a kid, being told to do that.
No.
I think they always said have shorter showers. I think I remember as a kid, they used to say something like count to 60 when you're in the shower, and that should do. You know, they gave us something really, or like sing one song. You know, I can't remember.
Yeah, that's true, because you guys suffer from droughts and everything. So, yeah.
The other thing I wanted to say is, don't you think it would be funny if out there somewhere there's two French people doing a podcast about weird New Zealanders and Australians, and they're saying, they stand in the shower for like 4 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
They do it in one go.
Yeah.
What the?
It's like a treat at the end of the line. Like, how do they do it? But I get comments and they're like, but how do you wash your hair with the water running?
But
like,
the hair's easy. You can just lean out of the stream.
There are so many tactics. Like, you can keep the water running. But and it's interesting because a lot of French people go to New Zealand. It's kind of like a dream for them. Yeah. You know, I think it's so far away, and so they say, "Oh wow, you're from New Zealand," and they do confront me on this. They say, "I was really surprised because you think it's this clean green country." But actually, you guys are so wasteful with water. I saw people watering their grass.
True,
like, yeah, that happens. Washing
too.
Their car outside, just the water like going full bore and everything. And
whole different mindset, right?
Yeah, it's true.
I remember when I was living in Perth in Western Australia, we had an international student that lived with us from Canada. It was like a share house, student house, and she had some frozen sausages, and she just put them in the sink and turned on the hot water and went out. Like went shopping or something.
Whoa.
And we came home, and it was at a time when there were water shortages as well. And we freaked out. We're like, what? And we're like, what are you doing?
Okay, that's next level.
Because you can get punished for it as well if you use the whatever. And she goes, oh, in Canada we've got like no end of water. I was like, oh, okay. So I guess water.
Yeah, we're a bit spoiled, I think. We come from very like countries that are really abundant in resources.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure everybody, wherever you're listening, have a thought on that topic. And I'm interested to hear your feedback. Send it all to Rosie, please. Not even French. You've also got air conditioning.
Yeah.
A fear of?
Fear of. So this one that makes me laugh. I think there's something around the French are very, careful about their health. And this is a big value. The health is a huge value in France. Which
Pharmacy
is
on every corner.
Exactly. Literally.
More even.
And associated with this, I think you could come up with a cliche that can be a little bit hypochondriac sometimes. And I find this to be true when it comes to like air conditioning and slight breezes. So for example, I have had my French partner come home one day and say that he had a sore neck and he thought that he had a torticolis, as they call it, because he had a bit of breeze on his...
What's torticolis?
That's when you've got stiff neck muscles and you can't move your head anymore. Yeah. Because he had a slight breeze on him during the day at work, and it's summertime, and you're like, okay. And I have this thing as well, like with my colleagues, if you've got the air conditioning on, even like, either warm air conditioning in winter or cool in the summer, they often will come into the office and switch it off because they're like, oh, we don't want to get sick. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, what do you mean? And they're like, oh, air conditioning makes you sick. Yeah. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. And there's this fear of this courant d'air, an air current that I've noticed. If you've got a slight breeze coming into something, there's this fear that it's going to give you a sore neck and give you a cold. So that's interesting.
Have you noticed as well, I used to work in an office with a lot of French people, and when it was really hot, they always made you close the windows.
Yes, I think it may be related to this as well. It's like, even when it would be really nice to have a breeze coming in.
Oh, maybe it's like, related.
Yeah, I think it is, because it's like, oh, but it's hot and we need a breeze, but the breeze will make us sick.
So weird.
I
remember there's been heat waves in the past couple of years in Paris. And I, as an Australian, I'm used to opening the window, and they'd run in and they'd be like, what are you doing with the window open? And I wanted to kind of argue it, but there was like 30 people, and they could have been right. So shut the window. Sweated that one out. Yeah. Anyway, what else have we got here?
We've got no actually means convince me. And this is so true in personal life, at work. It's sort of like the first response will often be no. It's not possible. We can't do it. And when I first arrived, I'd take that as the final word. And I'd be like, oh, that's a shame. Okay. At work or elsewhere. And I've got an example that I just saw a few days ago at La Poste, where a lot of magical things happen.
Where this whole list could have been born.
And there was a woman in front of me, and she was going to pick up a parcel that had been sent to her. And it was, let's say, Laura Smith.
Yeah.
And she had her identity card, and it said Laura Smith Jones, because she was married, so it was her married name, double-barreled name.
Mm-hmm.
And the post guy was like, no, madame.
Yeah.
Like, it's not your name.
Yeah.
Like, c'est pas possible, etc. And she was like, what do you mean, c'est pas possible? And he's like, we cannot possibly give you, this package. It's not your name. And he's like, look, it's not my rules. It's not my job, etc., etc. So this kind of attitude. And then she was like, okay. And she's tried to bring out another piece of identity, but unfortunately she couldn't find one with the exact name. So she had to be like, please, I really need it. It's this. And tell him what was inside, etc. And he's like, almost getting there, warming up a little bit. And he's like, no, I can't. It's impossible. And then she really started arguing and being like, please. And had to get quite firm and say, this is ridiculous.
How long was the line going behind
it? Yeah, and at this point there must have been about 6 of us waiting. And then he was like, oh, let me check, rolled his eyes and went out the back. And then finally she got her parcel. Yeah. And for me, that's just a typical example of you have to fight sometimes. And I've had to become quite, assertive and really bring out, the guns blazing when it comes to just sort of like fighting for my ideas at work or fighting for my parcels at the post. Yeah. It's never take no as the first answer. You can always, try and convince them.
And does that also go in relationships, do you suppose?
I think that's universal. Right?
I don't know. I'm a married man. I don't know. That's what I tell you more. All right, there you go. So if you've got post to pick up, even if you don't have your ID, you might be able to get it, guys. Don't give up. Give them hell. Okay. No top sheet. What are you talking about?
No top sheet is like, okay. Let's talk about the layout of a standard bed.
Okay. I mean, a standard New Zealand
bed
made
in New Zealand. It's a regulation bed.
Right.
You've got the mattress. Yeah. You've got the mattress protector. Then you've got a fitted sheet, so the one with the crinkly corners that fits over. And then you have the top sheet, so that you have put on top of you, and then the covers, right? So this is my standard bed layout. In France, I was like, what? Like, there's no top sheet. Like, they just go straight from fitted sheet to duvet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but...
Is this in hotels or in people's...
In people's homes, from what I've understood.
Sure.
I mean, I haven't frequented many hotels, so I don't know if it's a family thing. It may be a family thing. It may be like too lazy to do the washing thing. But I was like, where's the top sheet? And, for my partner, he was really like... well, it's just double the washing. Yeah, he was like, why would you do that when you can just go direct to the duvet? And he's like, and plus it's uncomfortable and, I don't really like sleeping with one and stuff. And I was just like, what? For me, it's just, there's something about slipping into that top sheet in that, like, and then having your cozy duvet on top. So I thought that was quite surprising as well, like no top sheet. And, apparently I was like, but how often do you wash the duvet then? Because
I guess
then you've got like the straight contact to the, and they just strip the duvet and wash that weekly instead of washing the top sheet. Whereas for us, the duvet would last a lot longer, I think, but you'll just be changing your top sheet more often.
I think, so I stayed in a lot of hotels on the honeymoon trip in France.
Yeah.
And when I'm thinking about it, a lot of them were straight to duvets, like you said.
Oh, really?
Even
in hotels?
I think, we stayed in such a mix of Airbnb and farms and stuff, but I'm interested in this one for you listeners. Send in your comment on the Instagram post with hashtag team top sheet if you're for it, and hashtag hate the top sheet. I'll be really interested if anyone does that hashtag. You win a prize from Rosie. No, I'm just kidding. You don't win a prize, but you get a like. What else have we got here? Not finish. Okay, this is a good one. Language stuff. Love language stuff on the Earful Tower. Not finishing their ideas.
Yeah. So,
voila.
Yeah. So this is especially prevalent in the business context, but I find that French people very rarely finish their ideas or their sentences, and it's because they have what we call a high context communication culture, which means that there's a lot of things that they just assume that people get because of the context you're in.
Is this something that you made up? High context communication culture?
No, I'm a bit of a culture geek, and I do read books on.
Wow, that's cool.
It comes from a book called The Culture Map, actually. It was written by an INSEAD professor called Erin Myers. She's American, but she's lived in France for many, many years, and she maps out different business cultures against different scales. So, for example, one scale is high and low context communication. Low context is Australians and New Zealanders. What you say is what you get, like really straight up, straight to the point. And even, if we're doing a presentation, for example, we'll tell you what we're going to tell you. We tell you the thing, and then we tell you what we've just told you. It's very, very explicit. Right. In France, it's a much more high context, which means they use far less words, and there's a lot of implied meaning, and you just have to kind of get it. It's a bit of a softer touch. Another scale in her book, for example, is confrontation. So again, we are kind of in cultures where we try to avoid conflict and confrontation, whereas the French, the Russians, etc., they're much more comfortable with having a good old debate at work. Right. So it comes from that. And yeah, so what we're talking about.
So we're talking about the French, this voilà.
The voilà, yes, exactly. So the high context communication culture, so they'll often say to you, in the business context, at the end of a meeting, you'll be talking about the topic, just discussing everything, and they'll finish the meeting, they'll be like, voilà. And everyone will get up and leave the room, and you'll be like, do we have an action plan? Do we have to-dos? And they don't do all of that. They don't recap the meeting because it's implied, it's obvious
Did you find that difficult as a New Zealander?
At first I did. I was really seeking that. I was like having to go to my boss and being like, I'm sorry, what am I meant to do? And she's like, kind of looking at me
she's
like...
I said, voila.
Yeah, voila.
Rosie,
she's like,
pretty implied.
She's like, it was obvious, 12 minutes into the meeting we said that. I mean, that was obviously your action point. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. So there's like the end of the meetings, and also at the end of the sentences, it can be like, I went to the party and then I met a girl, voila. And you know what happened. Yeah. So it's sort of like they don't need to over-explain
School
anything.
must be hard, Here's the alphabet, and they get to M, and they're like, you get it.
Voila, you get the point.
Yeah, E equals M, you get it.
Yeah, voila.
How interesting.
Yeah.
Cool, and what was the name of that book again?
It's called The Culture Map.
There you go, guys, if you're into culture like Rosie.
Yes.
And then, here you go, we can end on this point, because we've already been speaking for 25 minutes, believe it or not.
Wow.
But this is a good one, because a lot of people, when they think of France and they often think of the restaurant scene, waiters, rude, surly, polite, attentive, depending on whether you step back and have to think about it. But one thing that you've written here is waiting for the bill for 100 years.
Exactly.
Slight exaggeration, Rosie.
It's just an approximation,
Talk me through it.
So I've explained in one of my videos that a lot of, when you go and dine out in Paris, for example, in particular, there's a lot of cliches that we have a lot of rude waiters because they kind of leave you and they take a long time to bring you the water and that kind of thing. And I talk about how that's actually really good service because each table is real estate, right, for that business. A restaurant is a business making money, and if you're sitting on one of their tables, you're taking up their real estate. So if they're leaving you for hours, it's actually a really nice thing. But one thing that still drives me crazy is how long it takes between finishing your meal and getting the bill. So you can ask, and it can actually take 15, 20, 30 minutes. I was like, you're at the end, you're ready to move on. Maybe you have a movie to go and see, a show to go see. But you just have to wait to pay, and you're just desperate. You're just waving them can I please pay for my food? And then they finally come. Yeah. And then you say,
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah. And you're like, I'd like to pay by card, please. By card. Yeah. Sorry, I'm speaking in Franglais. Pay with my card. And they're like, okay then. And then they have to go and get...
What?
Yeah. Then they're like, I have to go get the machine. Yeah. And you're like, okay. 20 minutes later, they'll finally bring back the machine. And you're just like, get me out of this restaurant.
But if you were to stand up and without paying leave the restaurant, I bet they'd be pretty quick to come after you.
They'd come running.
That could be one way to do it. I sometimes do that. It's I stand up when I'm ready to go, if I got a movie or whatever. I just, now it's winter, but I get up and I'll start putting on my jacket. And I think there's this fear that I'll do a run, especially as a low context Australian.
Yeah.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, exactly. You're just sending your signals.
Yeah. That low context Australian is leaving without paying. I'm going to go over there. I'm going to bring the card machine as well. I don't know if that's the solution to it, but
I sometimes stand up and it's you know, you stand up and you actually go to the till and you're like, look, can I pay? And they look a bit pissed.
People don't like that.
Yeah,
I do that as well sometimes.
That's when you're being really rude and you're like, guys, I've got to go. And when my friend came to visit, she was like, for her, a fellow New Zealander, she's like, it takes away from the meal for me because I had such a good time. I was so relaxed, and then I got frustrated, you know, because I was like getting impatient and stuff. So, but it's also one of the life lessons of France. Learn to slow down a bit.
Yeah, slow down.
Yeah.
Or learn the tricks. Like when you walk in, you can order when they're seating you. You know, you ever done that? I did that last night.
Wow.
I went into a restaurant last night, but we were in a bit of a rush. And I said, yeah, just two to eat, whatever. And I said, I'll take that burger and this drink. And then she was kind of like, oh, okay.
Okay, someone's come prepared.
But it worked. And at the end, you know, this is another weird culture shock that I don't know if you have in New Zealand. Absolutely don't have it in Australia. At the end of this very meal last night, they came over. So we'd had one drink and one meal. And we'd already asked to pay. And the other guy came over with 2 shots. Mm-hmm. It was a vodka violet shot. So it wasn't strong alcohol, but it was a shot. Mm-hmm. And they just give it to you for free. Do you get that?
No, I haven't had that before.
In sort of more like bars than restaurants.
Yeah.
And it happens like, maybe it says more about the kind of places I'm going, but like they like to give little free, especially at the end when you're leaving, especially if you're having a few drinks.
A little shot for the road.
And you're like, give it to me at the start, not the end. I'm about to go home and go to sleep. But there's another weird thing. Leave a comment, #shot or team no shot. Let us. Anyway, we got to wind it up. That went quick.
Yeah.
But we're going to go do a walk show now.
Yes.
So you guys, if you like, this is great because if you're listening and you also like visual stuff, go and watch me and Rosie doing this walk show. Watch her video where you and I sat down talking about France versus Paris.
Yeah.
Subscribe to her YouTube channel and watch the rest of her videos till Kingdom Come.
Exactly. You can find me at youtube.com/notevenfrench.
You got it. youtube.com/notevenfrench. Also Instagram, Facebook, and all the other regular places. But thanks for being on the Earful Tower.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
And good luck with the next 5 years of culture analysis and understanding.
Exactly. It's only going to get worse from here.
Well, there you have it. That was Rosie McCarthy, YouTuber, Not Even French. As I said, subscribe to her channel. I hope you already have. And yeah, that's it's been another crazy year for the Earful Tower. As I say this, I'm about to fly out of the country for Christmas in Sweden. So there'll still be episodes every Monday, but there will be a lot fewer of the Paris walk shows while I take a little bit of a Christmas break. For those Patreon subscribers who've been watching the walk shows, I think I'll throw in another one from Sweden as I've done before in the past. But just because the live videos aren't coming doesn't mean you shouldn't sign up, because there are 20 videos in a row, all about half an hour long, with almost 20 different guests. I think there was 1 or 2 that I did by myself. But showcasing Paris from the first hour on Dismont with Heidi Evans all the way through to the 20th with Kasha. I mean, there's just plenty to look at there. And of course, the other bonuses that come with a Patreon subscription, including the book club and, of course, the magazine that comes out at the end of every month. Anyway, let's leave it at that. You've been listening to the Earful Tower, in quotation marks here, the best podcast in Paris. Thanks for listening, and you'll hear from me again next week.